Hello everyone, and I hope you are having a very Merry Christmas. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I don't usually do podcast style shows with proper audio and proper quality, but sometimes things change for the better. But anyways, I am here with Quaylon Robertson.
Is that what it is?
That's your name. I was told
I didn't know that.
The proper Irish pronunciation was Quaylon.
I thought it was Kaylin. That's weird.
It's close enough.
Maybe you're right.
Is it Robinson or Robertson?
Robertson.
I don't know my guests' names because that would mean I cared about them. And they were relevant. Anyways,
Especially
a lot of you are probably wondering why I have the betrayer of Basically, none of that happened. But anyways, we are not talking about how gay your videos are. Instead, we are talking about the gays in general. The gay question.
The gayish question.
The gayish question. The GQ.
Exactly.
Isn't that a magazine?
It's a really good magazine. I hear that Jeremy Corbyn's on the front cover.
Okay, wait, but before we get into the gay question, we need to turn off these very annoying sweaters because I guarantee they're flashing lights and they're going to give everyone a seizure that's watching this, and then they're going to sue me, and it's not going to be a good time. I have enough people trying to do that to me right now. So, gay people. Obviously, the only reason I'm having you on here is because you're remotely conservative and also a part of a minority group, which means I can relentlessly bash that group without people calling me a bigot.
Yeah, but that's literally the left.
I have a gay friend.
That's the left that made that possible.
Why?
They're the ones that make everyone a token. They're the ones
That's true.
Yeah, and you guys are just okay, well, fair enough, it may as well. It wasn't really an issue to, conservatives, whether you're black or gay, they're okay, how much good work do you produce? That's what they judge people by. But the left want to, put everyone in these little boxes and keep them as their little pets, so we may as well go by that. That's what's going on.
Right. I guess you didn't really see in traditional conservatism a whole lot of tokenism. It was just kind of, what's your arguments? And now these days I get annoyed by it. I think it's silly, but you totally see people just going by conservative, gay, conservative, black, red pill, female.
It's going to blow your mind. Oh my God, he's conservative and he's black.
Here's one thing though. I don't think we use our tokens, so to speak, to their full extent. Because if I were lesbian or something, all I would talk about is degeneracy within pride culture and gay culture and everything. I talked about it once on my channel where I did a video on pride parades, and it was put into restricted mode immediately. Facebook removed it, and I'm hoping because I have my token on this podcast, we can talk about that and it won't be restricted.
Oh my God, you're completely right. You need the token. Only black people can talk about black issues. Yeah. The Democratic Plantation, all this stuff that only can come from black people. Because
Democratic Plantation.
That's the only way that you can talk about it.
Real racists.
No, but because the left has created that, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's you have these protected groups. So you have gays, which are the ultimate protected group, as well as blacks, as well as Jews.
Are they, though? Are gays? I feel like that's kind of, you've decreased in the stock value of protected groups.
White gays in far left groups have become a little bit less on the oppression scale. But in general society, if you take the piss out of gay people act horrified. Even in the playground, gay kids used to be the one who were bullied. Now it's seen as bullying someone in a wheelchair. People are like, oh my God. This is a major problem because bullying is
maybe it is bullying someone in a wheelchair. Some people say it's a disorder.
Well, fair enough. You know what? That there's some merit in that research. But the bullying was necessary. You have kids going around now and they'll go around the playground, not like they did before, and they could act like complete little sissy boy, and they could be avoiding sports, or they could be running around or being really attention seeking. They get bullied, maybe they get beaten up, and then they would quit it for the rest of their life. Now they're literally encouraging them to carry on being like that. And then they go out through the rest of their lives without any filters. Whereas before, the bullying was the filter. They were okay, if you act like a little bitch, if you act like this, you're going to get it cut off. It's done. You can't do it anymore. Whereas now they can't. They can just go out in the world and do whatever they want.
That's
really problematic.
Really interesting. Because I remember when I was younger, this sounds horrible, but I was really against the whole Pink Shirt Day anti-bullying campaigns. Yeah. Not because I don't think horrific getting the crap beat out of you bullying isn't totally wrong, but I think that there is an extent of social recourse that needs to happen when someone behaves in a stupid way. If I were to run into a classroom and start throwing tables around and shrieking at the top of my lungs and no one was allowed to say anything about it, I would continue on that behavior and I wouldn't be able to perform as a human being in acceptable society.
If you literally had a kid running around the school screaming and shouting, like standing on the tables, proclaiming their gender, it would stop them. It would basically filter their behavior. But now they get a job at BuzzFeed, they get a job at The Guardian, they basically can infiltrate the rest of society. And bullying is an important part of just character building. Like, it's an important part of life because it translates to the rest of the world. I mean, people look at you in the same way as they do when you're in the schoolyard. And the fact that we've basically abolished bullying in the UK, we've made it illegal. We're actually arresting kids in the UK every single day for bullying other kids. Then it's completely destroyed the playground. It's completely destroyed anything like that. Bullying's an integral part of growing up as a kid.
Right, and here's the things too. Like, I know a lot of conservatives are like big anti-bullying activists too, and like, good on you, your heart's in the right place. But I don't think you can totally eliminate it either. What's happened is you've created this kind of reversing of roles as well, where when I was in high school, I got picked on a lot for being more right-wing, libertarian, for asking questions. When I would challenge the teacher on something, and the teacher would snap back at me with like something that was completely irrelevant, like, you're just a stupid right-winger, and then the whole class would laugh at me, that was never considered bullying because it was the right kind of bullying. So you can never eradicate it.
But it was still good. I'm sure that was good for you because it taught you there's a counter argument. Maybe people will be against that when I leave school, and it like builds your character. It made you the person you are now. It's important.
Right. That's also something that I actually feel bad for left-wing students for. They never, ever, going throughout their whole education, high school, university, they never get to have their ideas challenged. They never get to feel what it's like to be on the hot spot and to have to defend themselves. And that does not help character. That does not help you establish strong world beliefs. And that's something that, you're right, I think it was a positive experience for me as well. But I wanted to kind of abolish this idea that you can completely get rid of bullying. It will go onto the internet, it will reverse, it'll be like the environmentalists and the feminists bullying the people that are on the out group, which is now kind of the more conservative individuals.
Yeah, it's gone into a complete full circle, but you literally have the people, like, you can see whenever either of us speak to someone at like a far left march, they're literally exploding when you offer them a question because they've never heard of them before. Like, when you said the Islam versus women's rights thing, they literally have never heard that before, because they've been allowed to, bullying's been abolished, go out through the whole school life, being like this, being let away with it, same through their workplace. And then this is like the first time they've come face to face with it. But it's the same thing with gays, with any other behavior. And it's basically letting like hordes of young people leave the education system completely fucked up, thinking that they can like take on the world as an SJW, as a disaster, or as like a degenerate, horrible gay. It just doesn't work.
Caitlin is gay, by the way, so just to remind you guys, don't take down or demonetize my YouTube video.
That's like the most shocking plot turn that's ever happened in a video.
No, that's also a thing I want to address. I think a lot of parents are told, like, hey, we're doing an anti-bullying campaign, and they're like, oh, thank goodness, I'm glad that my child won't be subjected to that. But that word now encompasses asking a simple question, like feminism versus Islam, asking someone to back up their world beliefs, asking someone to improve themselves, to run faster, to try harder. That is seen as bullying. That is seen as unkind. So that word just means nothing anymore. It's totally lost its...
Yeah, like the boundary of what is and isn't bullying doesn't even exist, because if you can constitute asking somebody a question that contradicts their worldview bullying, then all bets are off. They've never had to face the real world. They never had their views questioned. And they literally think that they can get away with whatever they want. And on this topic of gays, it's why you have gays going around having sex. Something like, I was reading today, 70% of gays have over 500 partners in their lifetime. Like, it's absolutely shocking. They can have complete, like, promiscuous lifestyles. They're pushing HIV throughout the UK. Basically, they have these completely degenerate, like, awful lifestyles. They've never been questioned on it. They've never had anything contradicted. And you have these protected groups that can just get away with whatever they want, and it literally harms your society. And so you basically have these promiscuous relationships, which means that gay people are sleeping with around on average, 70% of gay people sleep with over 90 partners a year. And that's like absolutely insane. Like, they don't stay in stable relationships. They'll go around the world and they'll basically get huge rates of HIV, of STDs. They can come back to the UK. They'll never be criticized, even by their own family. They can literally get life-threatening diseases and illnesses, which, by the way, cost the NHS in this country millions and millions of pounds a year when they're making cuts on like brain surgery and cancer research. It's like causing extreme damage to our entire society, but they can't be criticized. The whole can't be criticized culture is like sweeping into the whole of the UK. It's a disaster.
Well, that's fascinating. I want to talk about this word degenerate because it has become a bit of a buzzword within kind of the right-wing community where it's like, you disagreed with me, you're a degenerate. You dyed your hair, you're a degenerate, right? But I really think in the context of what has become of the modern gay community, it is an absolutely fitting word when it comes to a community having purposeless sex just with tons of people that has led to disease, spread of just like you were saying, all of these horrific things and costing the NHS tons of money. That is degenerating their lives and society as a whole. So I think that is a proper application of that word. Now, of course, not all, but
well, like 70%.
like,
you can say not all, but I'll say most, and the rest are irrelevant.
Would you say that the gay community as a whole, I know you don't speak for them, are the majority aware that their lifestyle is harmful to themselves and the people around them?
It's like Stockholm syndrome. They all know what's going on. Like, I spent years when I moved to London in the gay community, going to all the bars, restaurants, nightclubs, parties, all of it. Like, I've seen the high end of it, the bottom end of it, the whole thing when I was like on the left. And they all know what's going on. They know every gay person in London probably knows someone who's either been diagnosed with AIDS or whose friend has died from something like AIDS and AIDS virus, who has been cheated on, who's had 10 relationships. Everybody knows someone. What community behaves like that where every single person you know has had such a horrific thing happen to them? They all know what's going on in their communities. They all know what's happening, but they all turn a blind eye to it because nobody criticizes it. It's almost like if you're doing something continuously, you rationalize it in your own brain and you never have an outside source question it. So it sort of seems like, okay, well, this is fair enough. And because if you question growing HIV rates or if you question promiscuous or degenerate behavior, you are literally accused of homophobia, regardless. Unless you're a gay yourself, a token, you can't talk about it because it's not your place. It's not you haven't had that lived experience. This whole lived experience thing is taking over the entire narrative. And this is what's happening. So you basically have a group that's being allowed to basically get away with murder, actual murder. If you look at San Francisco, they've just legalized being able to infect somebody with HIV and without telling them and knowingly do that. That's a death sentence to somebody. That's legalizing murder. In the UK, someone was just sentenced to a couple of years in prison, not that many, for infecting 7 people with HIV knowingly, sending them text messages saying, ha ha ha, I have AIDS, 2 days after sleeping with them. These things are happening constantly up and down the Western world, and it's basically the fact it's never been questioned, it's never been allowed to be stopped, isn't just costing your NHS so much, but it's literally killing people. And it's appalling that nobody's talking about it in the news or the mainstream media anymore. Instead, they're more focused on putting them up on a pedestal, putting them on drama TV programs in the entertainment industry, making sure they're representative as, you know, being the perfect family role model. It just doesn't make any sense, but it's actually causing severe damage. It's not just some social issue. You know what I mean?
And here's what shocks me a lot as well is, I mean, of course, when gay people were still trying to earn rights and be more accepted, they were integrating into society. Like, I couldn't tell if someone was gay or not for the most part. They wouldn't be doing this over dramatic lisp. They wouldn't be running around in the street with a dildo glued to your head. Fast forward to 2017, and the gay community, the LGBT community, are running through the streets with celebrating 12-year-olds twerking at their events, watching people run around stripped naked, and their whole identity has become about sex. This is why I don't, for the most part, mind hanging around you, because you never talk about being gay. You just don't. You never talk about being gay. You never talk about gay events, LGBT stuff. I just can't tell, except for your stupid lisp. That's it. That's the only thing I have to deal with. But a lot of the gay community seems to want to be rejected. Like, if you want to make someone homophobic, let them watch a pride march. What is going on there?
I became homophobic after going to a pride march. Like, it's literally poisonous. But it's the same thing that happened with the black community. In the 50s and 60s, there's actually been lots of studies carried out that said that black people were actually happier in the 50s and 60s, and they were in more homely families, and they had a higher full-parent household, less single-parent households, basically, in the 50s and 60s, because you had societal pressure on that group. They were allowed to be criticized in that era. And it's the same with gays 20 years ago. They were allowed to be criticized. They were under the spotlight. They were held to a high standard. You had to be a certain type of person. And that is actually good to a certain extent for a community. But when you take that away completely and you let a community completely roam free in the world, no matter how dangerous it is, then you have this abhorrent behavior. You have the normalization of pedophilia, of this twink sort of young culture, of degeneracy, of promiscuity, of dying early because of age.
Right, and I just want to jump in here because people are going to be like, oh, that's horrible. You're making it a race or gay issue. You're saying they should have to be oppressed to behave properly. No, this applies to any group. As you can see today with conservatives, conservatives don't steal things from people. They don't punch people randomly. They aren't running around like Antifa screaming and doing all these things because they have the spotlight on them. The media won't criticize Antifa. They will watch for conservatives. If one Trump supporter punches someone or there's one white nationalist rally like Charlottesville, that's in the media for months and months and months on end. Whereas a Black Lives Matter march that literally kills police officers, people won't talk about it. So why shouldn't we stigmatize something that will kill you?
We shouldn't stigmatize murder. It's so bad. We shouldn't stigmatize gun crime or terrorism. Why do we stigmatize terrorism? Every time someone commits a terror attack, we write about how awful they are in the news. Why are we doing that? It's not good. We need to be better.
It's almost what's the word I'm looking for? Patronizing.
Oh yeah.
It's almost patronizing.
God, the left are the most patronizing group you can possibly imagine. But you're exactly right about conservatives. That's why conservatives commit the lowest crime, the lowest street crime, the lowest violent crime. That's why probably, I mean, I don't know the official stats, but I'm sure conservatives earn more than any other group in the US or in the UK. They're the most well-behaved, the most well-dressed, in every single way. I grew up in a very rural southern town in Ireland where they didn't have any of this sort of gay rights, LGBT crap, and people were a lot more strict on the gay thing. Like, they were like, oh my God, the gay kid. And I think it was a good thing for me. I think it was really helpful in not being like a complete degenerate fool. And that it should be carried out throughout the whole thing. I mean, if you look at priorities as well, when you have a gay pride march in London, you have this year 1.1 million people attended. The city was literally destroyed. All the streets were closed. Everything was completely finished. There were children twerking in the streets. And then we went to a Gays Against Sharia event, and there were 17 people there. And it's like, this is the priority as well as the group. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, they want to vote for their own demise. They want to kill themselves, but with the whole AIDS thing, like, they literally have unprotected sex more than straights, even though they're in the highest risk group. It's probably the most self-destructive community I've ever witnessed in my life. And it's almost like looking at a culture that's completely lost faith in itself. And this is what we're seeing now. And the only thing that can improve it is criticism, is we need to criticize it. Don't not stigmatize AIDS, stigmatize AIDS. Say you're an absolute idiot for getting AIDS. You're a complete moron. You cost the NHS loads of money. You're probably going to die. And you shouldn't portray this to your friends and family. You shouldn't laugh about this. Basically the whole gay community needs to be ostracized. Homophobia, like, I think homophobia is completely justified right now. Because if you walk down the street and you see a group of a certain type of people screaming and shouting and making kids into complete degenerates and prostituting kids dancing in the street at gay pride festivals, having massive rates of unprotected sex, you would look at them and go, oh my God, they are fucking awful. But because they're gay, you can't do that. So I think that phobia needs to be brought back. It's completely justified. The right itself say that Islamophobia is justified, or that it's not even an irrational fear. And I think it should be the same for homophobia. But nobody has ever spoken about that before. They seem to think it's this, disastrous, terrible thing about a protected group that should be kept in a glass box above everybody's head. It's such a shame.
This is something that is also really interesting. I have trans people that I know, for example, and they are very anti the spreading of transgenderism because they say this is something unfortunate that I have to deal with. This is something that I just happen to fall into this category that is outside of the norm, and I wouldn't wish this or push this upon children. Do you find that the gay community wants to have more gay people and extend this ideology onto children?
I don't think they want to extend it upon children. Like, I've never really got that whole thing about like recruiting children. I think they want to normalize degeneracy and normalize not just being attracted to the same sex, but normalize the behavior that they're already showing, this like horrific, do whatever you want, have sex with whoever you want as often as you want behavior, so that they can feel better about it themselves. The more people that do the behavior that you do, the more normal it seems and the more okay it seems. Because deep down, these people know what they're doing is completely wrong. I think deep down they know that. They lie to themselves and they say, well, no one's telling me off, so it's fine, and I'm with all my friends on a night out. But deep down they know it's wrong. And so I just think they're trying to get as many people to behave like that as possible. It's why the gay guy in the office always goes out with the girl who's a secretary or whatever and takes her on a night out and encourages her to dump her boyfriend and be crazy and let her hair down, because he wants her to be like him and he wants everyone to be like him. And that's how it is. They want to bring everybody else down to the same standard that they are, the same behavior that they are. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, this is the sad and insane part, is this is something that is killing people, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a gay person, a fat person that needs to be told to stop eating because they're gonna die, or just a woman who is having sex with tons of guys who's totally straight that's getting diseases because of it. I just want to ask you, any last comments or thoughts regarding this issue?
I just hope that the gays in this country and in the West actually wake up and realize there are things that they need to be fighting for. The whole Islamization of the West that needs to be considered, that they need to be the number one on the forefront dealing with, that they should wake up about the whole thing and stop being such degenerates. I mean, there's not much we can really do about it, that's all I can say.
Right, y'all are suicidal.
It's completely suicidal
you're,
in every way.
Yeah, we don't want to be criticized, we want to bring in all the Islamists, we want to make it so that there's no stigma around AIDS. Like, maybe you guys just deserve to go extinct if you're going to do this.
Maybe
Come
that's
on.
true.
At least,
that would be better.
At least 70% or whatever it is that are far leftists.
It doesn't cost the NHS much, so.
Seriously though, this is something that, beyond jokes, it affects people's lives, and I truly hope for the best for most people, and that they start to realize that these are real issues that need to be addressed. Anyways, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'll see you next time.